Elizabeth Tran. I am so happy to have Noelle Pawlowski, the OG Asian beauty queen in my eyes, at least. So I am so excited to have you because you have just had so many different chapters in your life. Hence why
Hmm.
the title is from pageants to P. Diddy to
Yes.
parenting, and there's still so much in between with all of that. So yeah, let's start off with, how did you start in pageants?
So my mom actually entered me in one when I think I was like 2 years old.
What?
And yeah, so two, it was like Little Miss Michigan, and it was for a system called Tiny Stars of America. I've seen like pictures of me, and I'm I'm like have this sequin, outfit, and I'm dressed as like a sailboat. Like I'm the SS Michigan. I won the Michigan title. My parents took me to New York to compete at like Little Miss America, um, the nationals, and I
You
guess
were 3 years old at your first national pageant.
yeah, so
Oh,
like two or
wow.
three, I get on stage and they had, and I don't, you're probably too young to remember this, but like the California Raisins,
Uh-huh.
um, they had like mascots, and they were
Oh,
literally like
cute.
these raisins with like arms and legs and stuff.
Oh.
Well, they had the California raisins there for some reason, and I think they thought they would, like make the kids smile and make the kids laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I was terrified. Like I saw them out in the aisle of the audience, and I just cried like the whole time I was on stage at nationals.
No.
Um so yes, so I did not win the national title. I think I still placed.
Wow. I'm
But
impressed.
yeah, so that was that. That was the only one like I did when I was little. Um my parents were like, well, when she gets older, if she wants to do it and it's her
Mm.
decision, she can do it. Um I did some like local modeling. I grew up in Michigan, so it was nothing, there wasn't a whole lot of stuff to do.
Mhm.
Um but the grocery chain Meyer, which is super popular in the Midwest, like
Okay.
I would be in like their Sunday ads and things like that.
Ooh, okay, that's cool. So
Yeah.
when did you start modeling then?
Probably around the same time. I think probably when I was about 2.
Wow. Did
Yeah.
your mom model and do pageants as well? Is that why she started you so young into it? Or she just was like, you're a
No,
cute baby? Like,
I think she just thought, so I'm adopted.
yeah.
And I the part of like Michigan that I grew up in, not super diverse. And so I was such a commodity, I think, in our community. Um,
Mm.
with this little Asian baby, and
Yeah.
everyone was like, "Oh, she looks like a little doll, like a little China
Mhm.
doll." Um, and I think my mom just was like, "She's cute. She doesn't look like the other kids." And so they got me into it. And yeah, and then it was, I want to say like my freshman year in high school when I was like wanting to get into pageants on my own. I did Miss Junior America.
Okay.
Um, I had no idea what I was doing. I
Mhm.
competed in like the Michigan pageant. We got my dress at J.C. Penney. Just did my own hair and makeup. That was common. There were so many girls. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Competed in like introduction, on stage question, evening gown, and then I think top 5, another final question.
Wow.
They called out my name, that I won, and I mean I was shocked. There were so many girls, and that was the first one that like I had really done, besides of
What do
course
you
I
think it
was.
was? I mean, yes, you're a beautiful woman, but like, were you always outgoing? Was it because you were already comfortable with
No.
modeling? Like,
Um, that was the thing, like, I was always very shy, um,
okay.
and in high school, I had a good group of friends, I was a cheerleader,
Mhm.
um, but I always felt a little, like, out of place, just being Asian and not necessarily, like, seeing a lot of people that looked like me.
Absolutely.
Um, and like I knew I had friends and people liked me, but it was just like this internal thing where I was
Mhm.
like, I just don't, it's weird. It's weird to not see yourself. And
But it's well, I mean, okay, even it's hard, but I went to like a high school that had a lot of Asian students because it was like
Mhm.
international baccalaureate at
Yeah.
least. And, my family all looks like me as well. So I can't even imagine how much harder it was for you in this small town in Michigan and
Yeah.
it's cold. I have to say that because for me, thank goodness I had someone like you that I could see when I was
Mhm.
the awkward 10-year-old at American Coed, that it was like, oh, there are other Asian girls that compete in pageants and that are cool. Like, this is
Mhm.
great. I don't even know who you could have looked up to at that time in
Yeah.
pageant land or
Um,
in Michigan.
there wasn't so yeah, it's kind of weird not seeing yourself represented in magazines and commercials and movies and then the pageant stage. But I think the reason I fell so in love with pageants is because when I would travel out of town for the weekend, compete in these pageants, I didn't necessarily stick out like in a bad way. There still weren't a ton of Asian people.
No, and there
But
never has been.
I felt more like I belonged,
Yes.
in a way because I didn't feel like anyone looked at me as being different.
Hmm.
Or if they did, they looked at it as like being a good thing, like,
Yeah.
wow, like you're very exotic,
Exotic.
which which is always like their go-to.
Hmm.
Um, but I felt more confident because
And
in
you won
pageant,
your like first
well,
try as a teen and crying over a raisin mascot. Like
yeah,
you had something in it clearly because I don't think it took me maybe like 5 or 6 years to like finally make top 15 at a pageant
uh-huh.
for you to go in first time JC Penney dress, no experience. I'm like, wow, I'm very impressed.
I think a lot of it was that I didn't think too much about it. I mean, I really
Mhm.
like I just went up and I felt confident. Like I felt pretty and like accepted and I'm sure that translated on stage. And fortunately, even though I was on the shyer end, I had always been pretty good with like public speaking and things like that.
Mhm.
So yeah, so after that, I went to nationals. I was fourth runner up, and then from there, I dabbled in other systems that don't even exist anymore. Yeah, I was like Miss Wolverine State Teen for one system. I did Sunburst, just the local, the ones that they hold at the mall, and then went to the Michigan State one. And then it wasn't until I think sophomore year in high school that I got into the USA system.
Okay.
So that was my first year that I competed at Miss Michigan Teen USA.
Was that a big jump in terms of like the challenge or level in comparison to the other systems?
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's probably still true for like anyone.
Yeah.
The USA or like America system is just it's so different from your local like town or community, um,
Mhm.
or even some like the smaller pageants that target like middle school and high schoolers.
Mhm. Yeah.
I don't think my mom or I were really prepared for what everything that encompassed the USA system. My mom made my dress, and now she's a very
Yes.
talented seamstress, but she made my dress. And like looking back at pictures and stuff, there's no way.
Know the caliber of it until
But
you
yeah,
go in.
until you're actually in it, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like these girls' dresses. I didn't even know, like in Portage, Michigan, where I grew up, like we didn't
Mhm.
have dresses like pieces.
Regalia along
There was
those
no regalia, La Casa
lines.
Hermosa. I had my J.C. Penney dress and then like a dress that my mom made that we
Mhm.
thought was really pretty and like flattering. And then I show up like in Port Huron, Michigan for state and like, oh my gosh, like these girls' dresses and the fake hair and the tans, like it was like the big leagues. And I was not prepared for that. So not a big surprise that I didn't place. I was devastated. I was so sad. I was so embarrassed because
Aw.
family drove and like came to watch me
But
and
it's also hard because you had such a winning streak too for a very long time. So they're
Yeah.
like, obviously, like she's gonna win again, or she's gonna make top five or
Mhm.
something. So for them, it must have been like, well, what do you mean? And I think that actually happens to a lot of pageant girls that go into a USA or America type system that have been competing in smaller pageants for
Uh,
many, many years. And then they jump in and they're like, I didn't? Like, what is this? It's
yeah.
crazy.
And because I did a prelim, it was my first one in the USA system. I was second runner up. Um,
Mm.
but I remember the director had pulled me aside and was like, "You actually scored the highest all 3 rounds." But then when we did final question, the way it worked out was that they ranked their personal like favorites. And so that
Wow.
knocked me down to second. But I was still confident. I was like, that was my first one. I did so good. I
Well, you
nailed it.
still
Like,
did well, yeah, and you still scored the highest in your local. So what? All you knew was that you're
yeah,
good at
I
this.
was just like, oh, I had great feedback from the judges. I was not prepared for what Miss Michigan Teen USA was. Like
Mhm.
the number of girls, the caliber of girls, the quality of like their dresses and
How many
interview
contestants
outfits.
do you think were there then?
Oh gosh, there were so many. I'm 100.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Like
A
there
hundred
they
for
had
teen
they
now
had
is huge.
they had huge numbers. Yeah, I mean, Michigan really puts on a great production. I think it's even the same owner and production company that
Wow.
does Michigan and Ohio. Even like the opening number, everything was
A real
just
dance, everything
yes.
crazy. Yeah.
And but I went back, competed another year, didn't place, and then just kind of took a break.
Mhm.
At that point, I think I was like junior, senior year, getting ready to move to Florida.
Yeah.
And, I was like, well, I'll wait till I get to Florida where, maybe I'll fit in more. I know you've been told the same things like your whole pageant career. This system isn't ready for an Asian winner. I think growing up, we're told that by people.
Mhm.
Try to hide your Asianness. Don't wear yellow. Don't wear red.
Mhm.
Um, the system just isn't ready for an Asian title holder. When people think of Miss USA or America representing, they don't think of an Asian person. So I thought when I moved to Florida, being more diverse, I was like, well,
Mhm.
maybe I'll have like more luck. So I moved to Florida right after high school, started looking at pageants,
Mhm.
and Michael Galanis was the first person that I met in Florida in the pageant world, and
Wow.
I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I competed
Mhm.
in one of his prelims, Miss Citrus USA. At the time,
Wow.
like he was a preliminary director for Florida USA, along
Okay.
with running Citrus.
Mhm.
And I bought my dress at
Mhm.
a bridal shop, so it was an
Yeah.
actual dress store this time.
Mhm.
Um, and I loved that dress. I felt
Mhm.
so pretty in it. I had my swimsuit, went to Daytona Beach to compete in this Miss Citrus pageant.
Yeah.
Again, not sure what I was getting myself into.
Mhm.
Had spoken to Michael on the phone. I remember one of the first things he said to me, "You'll come here to register. Just look for the gay man with makeup on." It was something something like that.
Oh,
And I was just like, okay.
sure. Yeah.
And yeah, and then the rest is just history.
Wow.
That was my introduction to Florida pageants, USA, Citrus, and the very, very famous Michael Galanis.
Wow. Okay, that makes sense how then you were connected to both
Mhm.
Citrus and all of Michael's pageants and the USA system.
Yeah. So
Because you
I went to Florida USA that year as Miss Citrus USA.
Oh, okay. And then how many years did you compete at Florida USA?
I think I qualified for 3. So
Okay.
this is when we're gonna start to getting
Yes.
the pageants to the
To
P
P.
Diddy.
Diddy. Yes. So I'll
The
I'll hold
second
off on
P.
that yet, only because I then want to segue onto I'm guessing one of those years you were doing Florida USA is I guess you judged me at co-ed.
Yeah.
Maybe I didn't meet you then, but over time we met each other.
Uh-huh.
But yeah,
Yeah,
it
I so I won the Miss Citrus pageant, was preparing to go to Florida, USA.
Mhm.
I think it was, I think the year it was like Miss Florida USA 2007.
Mhm.
But, at the time it was 2006.
Okay.
So I was super active, took that title
Okay.
really seriously, like went all over the state to
I
judge and
remember
make
that. Yeah.
appearances. And yeah, I met Patty. Was my first year judging the American Co-ed pageant,
Mhm.
and you were one of the contestants. And I remember like the little Asian girl in me was like, "It's another Asian."
Mhm.
And like I think a part of you is always like secretly like pulling,
Of
for
course. Mhm.
obviously as a judge, like you
Yeah.
like have favoritism or show bias or anything. But as a fellow like Asian in pageants, I was like,
Mhm.
I love her. I hope she does
Aw.
really well.
Thank you. I think I did well in optionals, but I don't think I placed. So don't worry. I don't think there was any favoritism. I think I was 16th and then I didn't make the top 15 like for one final year. But yes, I still even now as like a 30-year-old, I am still that same like awkward Asian girl backstage at American Co-ed doing homework. Like that's just part of who I am. I
Yeah.
can't let that go. And honestly, I really miss how pageants were where like you could show up with no makeup on and you could be like an awkward girl with glasses and braces
Uh-huh.
and a JC Penney dress and like you can still do fairly well or like you can go in there and not feel like oh my god like I'm not in the right place or anything
Right.
like that in pageants because now like even judging some other systems I'm like oh my god like I don't know. I'm scared. I want like because I now see your daughter doing the pageants, and it's cute because she looks like herself. You know, she
Yes.
can just show up, be comfortable, make a fool out of herself if she wants to, whatever. I really miss that. But no, even then, like I remember looking at your MySpace and thinking, oh, she's so cool and she's Asian and she does pageants, but she also models with like beer companies. You had this caption, and it was like, if you're dating a pageant girl, raise your hand. And if you're not, raise your
Use
standards.
the
And I was like,
standards.
whoa,
Yeah.
she's confident, she's cool. Cause like I was not confident at all. And so it was just really cool to see. And then I think it was your transition from pageants to P. Diddy, which is crazy because he's all over the news
Oh
now.
my
So
gosh,
please,
I know. I'm like,
let's
I
talk
can't use that as my fun fact anymore.
I mean, you can because it's even cooler or crazy fact. It doesn't have to be fun. It could be
Yeah.
crazy. So,
Um,
because
yeah, I
that
think
was your
it
fourth
was,
year eligibility, and then okay, I'll let you explain.
yes, I
Yeah.
think so. So, competed at Florida USA, is Citrus USA, didn't place.
Hmm.
Um, Second year, I had won the title of Miss North Central Florida USA.
Okay.
Um, was, supposed to go to state and had like a family like tragedy. Um,
Mm,
and just I didn't compete.
got it.
And then the third year I won Miss Jupiter USA, which like
Hmm.
that title still cracks me up.
Hmm.
Like people that don't know there's a city in Florida called Jupiter.
I'm already Miss Universe. Like
What? Miss Jupiter?
the
Um,
place.
and was supposed to go to state, and I I ended up being on a reality TV show. So no, you know what I did? I competed at Florida USA 2 years.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so 2 years. I qualified for 4 years, but I only ended up actually going 2 years.
Okay.
But my very last year, I had I saw this Craigslist ad, which is like
Craigslist?
really aging me. Yes, there was this Craigslist.
Oh.
I used to look at Craigslist ads for like modeling gigs and things like that.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and this was all before like the Craigslist killer and stuff like
Okay.
that.
Don't worry. I mean, I found my last roommate on Craigslist and now we're best friends. So
Yes,
like
we'll
that's
see.
okay.
Like this
Yeah,
was
yeah. That
back
was
when
a few
like it
years
was
ago.
very common.
Yeah.
Um, there was an ad that they were like casting for a reality TV show for,
Mhm.
you know, it's like, hey, do you want to work for, you know, like P Diddy? At the time he was P Diddy.
Mhm.
Um, and you know, I didn't really want to, but I was just like, oh, cool, like to be on TV, like to be a
Yeah.
reality TV star. So I sent in my like information. I drove to Miami to go to this casting, um, which where I lived, you know, like it was like a 4.5 hour drive. Just drove
Mhm.
down there by myself, went to this nightclub. Um, there were a bunch of people, and I remember they took us all in groups into this room, and they were like, you know, take 30 seconds, introduce yourself, you
Mhm.
know, name, where you're from, and just a little tidbit about yourself, and that was that. And so we go around the room. um I'm sure I my fun fact was something about pageants.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it was probably something like arrogant, like the if you're dating a pageant girl
Yeah. I
thing.
love it. I love it.
Um, and then that was that. Like that was
Mhm.
it. From that introduction, they had picked people to like move to the next round.
Okay.
So they like, you know, they just like with pageants, they say you make, you know, that first impression
Mhm.
within of the first couple seconds.
Mhm.
That's basically what the casting directors like did. They
Wow.
heard us say hi, our name, and from there they kind of knew like, okay, this person is interesting enough or like personable enough. Um, so the next day I had to go and do an on-camera audition, and it's like you're sitting there and you have all these bright lights on you and like all these
Mhm.
different cameras, people standing behind the cameras, just asking you all kinds of questions, like so
Okay.
many questions about yourself, and like it's literally you're just talking about yourself, and while
Mhm.
complete strangers are like filming you and like um I I remember like one of the like I kept moving on to like the next round,
Uh-huh.
and like one of the final in-person rounds we had to fill out all this like paperwork.
Mhm.
And I printed it all out on pink paper. So my whole bio and application was on pink paper,
Mhm.
and I got these like rhinestone crown and like tiara like stickers or something.
Mhm.
Because that was like my whole thing. Like
Yeah.
auditioning for reality shows, when you have to have like
The archetype.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And so mine, of course, was like the pageant girl.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I turned in my papers, pink paper, like rhinestones, crown stickers. I had sprayed it with perfume, um, turned it in, and you know, like did my on-camera like audition interview.
Mhm.
And a lot of it is just like waiting, like as they go back to their offices and like rewatch all the footage and everything. And
Mm.
then I had gotten the call that I had made it to, you know, the top 50. And so, you know, from there, like you submit more information.
Okay.
And they're like, we're going to keep narrowing it down. You'll hear something. And then I got the call that I had made it, I don't know, I think from the top 50, then it was like the top 20. And then I think the top 10, and they were like, okay, now we're going to fly you out to New York. And you're going to do more like auditions and on camera tests. And then,
Whoa.
yeah, so I was so ecstatic. I was like, I cannot believe, because there were so many people that auditioned to be on this
Mhm.
show.
Mhm.
Um, and the thing was like my whole pageant like stick thing was like what stood out,
Of
because that set
course.
me like apart from everyone else.
Mhm.
And um yeah, so I was like, okay, I'm going to New York, and they're like, you need to pack though as if like you're going to stay here for a few months, because we're
Whoa.
having people come out to New York, finishing, our casting process. but some of you will just stay, and we're gonna just start immediately like go into like filming for the second season of I
Holy
Want
cow.
to Work for Diddy. So I was like, okay, I have to like try to figure out how to pack and
Mhm.
like one, and they're like, you can have like one suitcase and like a personal bag, like carry on type bag. But yeah, you need to like pack enough as if like you're gonna stay.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, so I was like, got flown out to New York, put up in a hotel, was like doing my interviews and on camera tests with VH1. Um, and then we were like filming something, and they were like, this is like a test. And we were at like the train station,
Mhm.
and I don't even remember what we were supposed to be doing. Um, but I had like looked over at one of the production assistants, like call sheets or something, and it had the names listed.
Mhm.
And I saw my name on it, and I remember she was like, "Did you read this?" And I was like, "No."
What?
And I mean, like I did, but I didn't really know what exactly it was for. And we were the list of like people that were going to be on the show.
Ooh.
They just hadn't like told us yet.
Mhm.
So, um, yeah, so I ended up staying, and from there it was like, okay, now we're like gonna start filming. Um, you have like no time to process it. Like they're literally like, okay, like we're starting to film. We'll take your stuff, you'll see it later. Here's what we're gonna do. I had on I had on this like silk like suit that my mom
Mhm.
had made.
Aw.
I think I had on like baby fat, like stiletto
Love
pumps.
it.
Um, and they're like, yeah, okay, so here's what we're gonna do. Um, and you just jump right into it. Like, it was just like, wait, what? Like, what is happening? Can I
Was it like
change my
an internship
clothes?
competition, basically?
Yeah, and it was to see like who was going to be Diddy's next assistant. So it was on VH1. It was the second season. Um the first season, if you know the actress Laverne Cox,
Yeah,
who's
yeah,
Orange is the New Black and stuff, um she was on that first season.
yeah.
And
Wow.
I don't think she had like fully transitioned at the time when she
Got it. Okay.
competed on that show.
Mhm.
Um because a lot of her like character type obviously revolved on like around her identity and what she was going
Mm.
through.
Got it, got it.
But yeah, she was on that first season,
Wow.
along with someone named Popra,
Okay.
who at the time like everyone knew who she was.
Okay.
I can't remember if she was the one that won season one or not. I couldn't tell you who won season one.
Mhm.
um, but yeah, I was out there to film season two. Um, we
Did
like
you
went,
Sorry, did you meet P. Diddy during your initial auditions, or did you have to wait until the first, like,
yeah, we
filming?
had to wait until like the first like real day of filming. Um,
Oh.
so yeah, so like we're doing what I thought was just test and more interviews, to
Mhm.
all of a sudden we were filming actual stuff for the show.
Oh,
So they had us like we walked to like Bad Boy Studios, and
okay.
it's nighttime, and of course there's a note on the door um about how we have to find like our own place to sleep for the night, because we're all thinking like, oh cool, like we're gonna be put up, it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
And no, and I can't remember like if the note just said where we were sleeping or if it was like a scavenger hunt type thing.
Mhm.
But basically that first night we slept on the rooftop of a parking garage.
Oh,
For
no.
real. um it not like we just filmed like some bits, like b-roll.
Like, you
we
actually
we
slept in a
actually slept
what?
in the night on a rooftop parking garage. um We
That's
got to the
cool.
parking garage and there were like sleeping bags for
Mhm.
every contestant. And like, yeah, they were like, no, you really, and we just had the clothes on our back. So again, I had on the suit and my baby fat shoes, no toothbrush, no like stuff for my
Mhm.
contacts, like nothing. I want to say there were like 10 of us.
Yeah.
And so that was our first challenge or whatever. We literally spent the night on the rooftop of a parking garage in New York City. And I like I remember laying like in my like sleeping bag and I was like, is this real life? Like what? Like any minute now they're going to come and be like, "Cut," and like come
Mhm.
get us and take us to a hotel,
Right?
right? No, never happened.
Oh,
Like we woke up like first thing in the morning and they were like, "Okay, roll up your sleeping bags. Like, let's go. We're on to the next thing." And of course, we're all like, "Can we change our clothes? Can we like brush our
take a
hair,
shot,
brush our
brush your
teeth,
teeth. Yeah.
do something?" Um, and they loaded us all up in a van and took us to Bad Boy Studios. And didn't tell us like what we were doing. We're just sitting in the waiting room and they were like calling us back one by one. Come to find out what they were doing when they were calling us back one by one, sending us in to Sean Combs' office.
Oh.
So that was the first time we met him after sleeping in the parking garage.
Yeah.
The pageant girl in me was like, my gosh, like my outfit's wrinkled. I had ripped, like my skirt had ripped. I think I had blisters because my shoes kept coming off because we're running through New York City. I had stuffed toilet paper like in the back of my shoes to try
Oh
to
my
stop
gosh.
slipping off. I had gotten like oil stains on the skirt. The slit in the back had ripped. And they're like, okay, walk down this hall, go in here. And I walk and I turn into this huge office. And he's sitting so far back from the door and sitting at his desk, doesn't acknowledge me at all. Sitting and like looking down, I think playing on his phone or something. And I just walk in and there he is. Like,
Mhm.
thank goodness this is real. And so like I sit
Mhm.
down and he just kind of looks up and he's, hey, what's up? I want to say he like asked you, well, he was like, how was the first day? Like, what did you do? And I was like, well, we slept in a parking garage.
Mhm.
He was like, oh yeah, really? It's like, mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's how our first day went. How was your day, Diddy? Yeah, and it was a very interesting like interaction.
Yeah. Now that we've seen all these news and crazy things about P. Diddy right now, like, how much did you interact with him? And do you feel like from your interactions with him, this seems like something accurate or?
So I mean, going into it, I think I already had the opinion that, he's arrogant,
Yes.
and, whatever. Definitely. So the first time I met him, again, like he didn't acknowledge anyone when we
Mhm.
walked into his office. He actually like scolded some of the contestants. If you look back and watch the first episode, one of the guys walks in and sits down, and Diddy looks up and he's like, "Did I tell you you could have a seat?" And the guy's like, "No, so I'm sorry, sir."
Wow.
And there was another one. The girl's just sitting there, and they're both just staring at each other, like in the
Mhm.
crickets. And then they bring him his lunch, and it's a salad. And like all of a sudden, he throws the fork down, and
I was gonna say, sounds like it's because he's getting filmed. I
yeah,
don't know if
and
that's
like
yeah.
shouts to the assistant,
Mhm.
and then he like picks up his phone and like slams it down. Which obviously this type of stuff is all for filming.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily think it was that exaggerated. Um,
Mm.
luckily he wasn't rude to me or anything.
Yeah.
He did ask me if I had heard that he liked Asian women.
Okay.
So, um, I was like, I no, I hadn't heard that specifically, and like I had no idea what to
I had no
say.
idea. Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, like Kamora Lee Simmons," because I worshipped Kamora Lee
Same,
Simmons.
the representation we all were looking at that time. Understood,
Loved
understood.
her.
Yes, yes.
And I remember he was just like, "Yeah, no." I was like, "Okay."
Okay.
And it just went our conversation just went downhill after that.
That's so
I
funny.
was I was so nervous and intimidated by him.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I left that interaction being like, yeah, that that sucked.
Wow.
Um, I don't know that anyone, I think maybe one person had like a good interaction with him. Everyone else was like, "Oh my God, like that was terrible." Um,
Wow.
yeah, so that was my one and only time meeting him.
So then, if you only met him once, because I imagine it like America's Next Top Model, where Tyra Banks is
Mm,
like, okay, you're being eliminated or something else.
yeah,
So they that's the only time you talk to him?
that was the only time I did. So
Okay.
I was the first one kicked off.
Okay.
I I was there filming for multiple days, but it
Mhm.
was all edited into like just the first episode.
Got it.
Um, and I got kicked off. And he wasn't the one to eliminate me. It was basically his
Oh,
team of
okay.
people that handled everything.
Got it.
And I remember after filming was done and they're like, "Okay, we're gonna send someone back to the house to get your stuff.
Mhm.
Um, and then we're gonna take you to a hotel."
Mhm.
Um, and I remember the director and the production staff and everyone came up to me and they're like, "We're really sad that you got eliminated." They're like,
Aw.
it just you're not crazy enough." They're like, "I mean, truly, you're too nice."
Yeah.
They're like, "You're too nice and sweet, and but if it makes you feel better," they're like, we are very disappointed that you're leaving." So the production staff was really sad because I apparently was like the only one that was nice and
What they
respectful.
wanted crazy, I guess they couldn't
Yes.
be with, yeah.
And I was like, "I get that,"
Yeah.
and people used to tell me, "You should have thrown a chair and you should have like done this," and that's not me.
Yeah,
Like,
and I mean also too, even as like a pageant girl, like I think sure maybe some reality shows are gonna like
mhm.
depict pageant girls as like crazy and whatever, but in reality, I feel like because of pageants, you have to be politically correct and
Yeah.
very polite and demure and whatever. It's just not part of our ethos. It's not who we are.
It's not worth it to
Yeah.
me. As filming went on and, like, after it was released and we did, like, appearances and
Mhm.
parties and things like that, I was like, I didn't miss out on anything
How long
at
did you
all.
stay in that hotel? Was it like America's Next Top Model where you had to wait till everybody was done, or could you like go back?
No, which I was kinda hoping for because
Yeah.
you still get paid. Um,
Ooh, okay.
so after I was eliminated and kicked out of the house,
Mhm.
they put me up in a hotel, and I think I was just there for, like, a few days,
Got it.
and, again, they just do that for confidentiality and stuff, and
Mm.
then I was allowed to, like, go home, but again, like, could not try to contact any of the
Mhm.
cast members, could not
Mm.
post, like, anything, like, no could not even say, like, "I'm back," or, at the time, I mean, I wasn't even allowed to tell people, like, what I was doing. Um,
Mm.
obviously, like, family,
Yeah.
knew, but I couldn't publicly, like, post, like, "Hey,
Mhm.
like, I'm in New York filming this TV show."
Yeah.
Um, so, yeah, it was like a gag order, basically, just
Mhm.
tight like, tight lip, don't say anything,
But that
until
was the reason why then you didn't compete your 4th year for Florida USA.
yeah.
And
I
was that
think I was actually I was in New York, I think, when the state pageant was happening.
Oh, okay.
And
Wow.
so I had told the director, I was like, "Listen, I am going out to New York for this reality TV show. I don't know if I'm gonna get it, but if I
Mhm.
do, like, I have to stay out there." And then yeah, like, ended up staying out there.
Wow.
not
Okay.
for long though.
Mhm, mhm. And then was that your final year of eligibility then for that pageant, or
I don't think so. I think I just kind of was done with that system. You know, when you have those like heart to heart chats with your coaches and like your
Mhm,
local directors, where you kind of just realize this maybe is just not the system for me.
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
and it was like it was mentioned a couple times of I just don't think, you know, with you being like you could have the right dress, you could have the perfect body,
Mhm.
you know, I just don't think that you would ever win.
Oh.
Um, and, you know, and again, like, I'm not, you know, I don't know that that's true. I don't know that if that would have played out that way.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I focused on like different systems.
Yeah,
That's
and
when
I
I got
feel
more
like
active into Michael's other
you
system.
opened so many doors for yourself then afterwards
Mhm.
too, whether no matter what pageant it was, because then you had like so many different careers. I would say, like, I knew of the side where you were a talent agent, and then the
Yes.
side where you were a flight attendant, and then you were still modeling and doing all
Mhm.
those other things too. Um,
Yeah, it definitely it I mean, just the connections, the networking, the opportunities I had and the opportunities, like, it led me to, um,
mhm.
you know, I would have never gotten those if I hadn't, like, been involved with the Florida USA system.
Oh,
So,
good. And I would
um
even say for you as a local title holder, it was great because you had
yeah.
those local directors, and you basically were a queen in
Mhm.
all the different places and spaces that you were going to, and you were one of those few queens that like actually went around your community and networked with
Mhm.
people, and that's how like my family got to know you. And like and I think even the same for myself, it's like it wasn't really about competing that competition weekend or competition week. It was about what we were doing as local title holders, like promoting our community service
Mhm.
or meeting people at different networking events. That was far more beneficial.
Yeah. And, yeah, I mean, I had won lots of, like, the preliminary titles,
Mhm.
you know, loved being a title holder and doing stuff in the community and, you know, with my sister queens and preparing for state. No, you know, I never made top 15 at state.
Mhm.
But yeah, it did open like a lot of doors um and I'm still super close friends with like some of my like title holder
Aw.
pageant sister. So yeah, you know, even though I never won the big crown or anything, I agree that like maybe that just wasn't the right system
Mhm.
for me, but it still I mean, it still was a big part of my life and
Yeah.
did do like a lot for me personally.
Mhm. And even for me, it was like I actually could see an Asian girl compete because I remember as a teenager, like at La Casa Hermosa, before
Yeah.
Robin was Miss America CEO or Florida USA director, and she was like, "Oh, would you do teen?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know. Like an Asian girl's never won. I don't even
Mhm.
think there was ever an Asian girl in the Miss division that made top 5. I think the only person I saw at the time was like Ann Doe making like
Yeah,
runner up at one point. But again, like for me, I'm like, at least I saw someone compete at that
right.
time. And even then, when I competed for 4 years at Florida USA, there was no local preliminary competitions, but I think I was still one of the only, if not the only, Asian girl. Maybe there was one or two other
Mhm.
girls maximum. So,
Yeah, it was like Ann Doe, I think, was like 4th runner up one year at
mhm.
Florida Teen USA. I don't know if she competed again after that. So she was actually one of my, like, little sisters. Um, when
Aw.
I was Miss Jupiter USA, she was Jupiter Teen USA.
Aw.
Um, yeah, and then she went on and, like, placed top 5 at Florida
Mhm.
Teen USA. Um, and I wanna say, like, the years that I competed, I think I was, like, the only Asian.
Mhm.
Well, Actually, I think Christina Hanolo.
Oh,
Um,
she did USA?
yeah,
Okay.
so she did Florida USA, I think, like, the first year that I did it too, and it was her first time.
Oh.
Um, she didn't place, and I wanna say, like, the year after or something like that, she switched to the America system, um,
Got it,
and then
got it.
obviously, like, went on to win Florida
Miss
America.
Florida. Yeah,
Yeah,
which is also awesome.
so,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's all I can think of, it's like
Mhm.
seeing her, and yeah, like Ando, but she was
Mm,
a different division, and
yeah.
then you eventually, like, went into the USA system.
Mhm.
So, yeah, we're trailblazers.
We're trying, all right? We're
We're trying.
constantly paving the way because I think for me too, it was like as a child seeing Rio Mori win Miss Universe was like
Yes.
such a core memory. But I remember like crying myself to sleep happy because I was like, wow, like we're seen as pretty. This is so
Mhm.
cool. I've never felt this way before. And so it just again, that little girl me was so hopeful and determined to win Miss Florida USA one day. And even though it never happened, and yes, now with the age limit thing, but I think it's like at that time, like pouring so much of yourself into the system. I was like,
Mhm.
okay, I did it, but now I got to see like what else, at least for right now in my life. Maybe when I'm older, and I have my career a little more in order, I'll go back. But until then, right now, I'm like, no, but I'm very grateful for the time that I did compete in
Yeah.
there because I think it did push me further. And I think the same thing for Outstanding Teen for me too.
Mhm. Yeah, that's right, you did the America system,
Yeah, because you were my mock interview judge, and that's when I think that was when you told us about the reality show, and
yeah.
so and like P Diddy was at his prime, clothing line, everything, but you were just doing one cool crazy thing after another, and if anything, I have to thank you in a way because I feel like you helped me not just for my representation in pageantry, but even for my own family, then we started getting into modeling
Yeah.
and commercials. So, like, when did you start becoming a talent agent?
I had done, like, scouting and stuff like
Hmm.
that, and then I moved from, like, Orlando to Tampa,
Hmm.
saw, this job opening for an assistant talent agent and was like, "Well, I think, like, I think I can do it. I have some experience as, being talent, like, myself in the
Hmm.
past, like, pageants, and, like, I think I can talk my way into, like, this type of role."
Hmm.
Interviewed with Level Talent Group,
Yeah.
was offered the position, came on board as like an assistant booker. I was there for a few years, ended up being the commercial and print director, and
Hmm.
it was basically Darcy who goes by her like birth name Emma now.
Hmm.
Um, but it was like us kind of like running the agency. She was doing
Hmm.
film and TV. I was doing like commercials, print, and stuff at HSN. Um, and yeah, I was constantly bringing in, like, my pageant girls.
Yes, we loved it. And especially, man, we always joke, we're like, Charisma, when you were 5 years old, you were at your prime. Everything else are there.
Oh my gosh, I, like, anytime there was a casting and it
Mhm.
could it was, like, open ethnicity, uh, yeah, I would, like, always trying to get, my pageant girls in,
Mhm.
Charisma anytime there were, like, little kids.
Oh my
Oh my
god, they loved her. It was so cute. You saw her while we were
She
watching
did so
SpongeBob,
much fun
her
stuff.
commercial. Yeah.
Yes, I would get so excited, like,
Mhm.
submitting her for things, and, it's your mom too, like, your
Yes.
mom killed it. She was
Well,
constantly booking
and
stuff.
I was even thinking that too because I was like, "Man, I thought I was gonna be the model," and I was like, "Why did they get booked everything?" But that's okay because now I live in Miami and now I'm
Yeah,
signed select, so everything's good.
yeah.
Everything worked out the way it was supposed to be.
Your timing for, like, becoming the supermodel just was,
Aw. A
later.
little later in life, yes, I had to still have my awkward teen phase, if anything. But
Yeah,
even
so
for
see, like, I signed your family when, like, Charisma was in that adorable, cute, you know,
adorable.
like, toddler, preschool age, and
Hmm.
your mom, who is just ageless,
Yes, gorgeous.
fits into, like, all the categories
All the
from,
HSN things, yeah.
yeah, it's like, okay, like, the young, like, hip 30-year-old couple,
Hmm.
the mom, the doctor, like, she just
That's
fits
so
into
cute.
everything. Like, she's just I mean, she's Rosanna. There's
Yes.
just
The
flawless.
queen. Yep, yep. No, it was great. No, thank you so much. You really helped us get into that and start a whole new chapter in our family's lives for sure. So yeah, I don't know if we would have a TLC reality series if it wasn't for you to give us that experience, you know?
I'm glad I was able to get you guys into the entertainment industry.
Yes, you were. You continue to pave the way. Thank you. And then, okay, gosh, like there really was so many different things that you did. So then, were you an agent and a flight attendant at the same time?
I left being an agent to be a flight attendant.
Got it.
It was one of those things where it was like it was something I had wanted to do because it
Mm,
sounded fun.
yeah.
Um, and so I applied, I interviewed, was offered like the position, went out to Arizona for 5 weeks for training,
Okay.
was a flight attendant, ended up getting my base. At first was in Philadelphia, which was
Hmm.
terrible.
Hmm.
They luckily let me transfer to Charlotte, North Carolina.
Hmm.
So I had an apartment, and I was living there for a little bit, and I just it just was not for me.
But at least you did it and you tried it.
Yes. So I mean, and yeah, I love the fact that I did it. I forgot what the statistics are, but the amount of people that apply with an airline and then who actually get hired and who like make it through training
Mhm.
and everything to actually like start working is, you know, it's impressive. So I
Yeah.
was very proud of myself for that.
Hmm.
And again, like I'm happy that I did it. I think it's really cool that I can say, like, I was a flight attendant,
Hmm.
um, but it was not it was really hard for me,
It's a hard job. Those hours,
yeah.
the amount of like going from this place to this place, and you were like my guardian angel when you lived
Oh
in
god,
Charlotte.
that's right. You saw my apartment in Charlotte.
I did it. So okay, I'm gonna like for other context for people listening. Um, it was my very first flight by myself. And like I've had many different stages of my life. Now I'm 30 and I think I'm more of an adult now. But when I was 18, I was still basically a baby and it was my first year at UM, but I didn't even it was like I missed the first week of college to do this sustainability summit in Seattle and
Mhm.
the layover I missed the layover because there was an emergency that happened on our flight. So they had to stop in like South Dakota or something. So I was freaking out. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to sleep in the terminal. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get my next flight. I don't know how to get to the arrivals. I knew nothing about airports. I am very book smart and I'm very street stupid. And so my mom, thank God, was like, Noelle lives there. She will help you. And I'm like, thank God. Because I was so dependent on my mother at the time. And I was like, she's not here. How am I going to do this? So luckily you
Yes,
were there.
I
Yeah.
remember getting that. I can't remember if she, like, called me or, sent me a message on, like, social media, but just, like, "Elizabeth is, like, stranded at the airport." And
Yeah.
I had just gotten off of a trip. Uh,
Yes.
yeah, so I had just gotten off of a trip and was like, I don't remember if I was already home or if I was, like, leaving the airport to
I
get
think you were
home.
waiting for me at the airport, and then we both
Was I?
went
Yeah,
together. Yeah, like, cause Uber
and I
wasn't a thing then either, like, I didn't
mhm.
even know how to call a taxi. I didn't even have my license yet, like, I was such a child. So now, if I was in that situation, I can handle myself, I can book a hotel, I'm fine. But
Yeah.
18-year-old me was losing it. I was like, "What am I doing? I can't do this. I don't know how to."
It really, like, it was like fate. I just
Yes.
happened to see this message from your mom
Mhm.
and was at the airport, like, getting off of my shift to, like, come and get you. And, I remember, like, we went through the McDonald's drive-through, and you were really excited because the McRib was back.
Oh, yes!
I don't know why I remember this,
My
but
mom told me it's the best, and so I again, anything she says is like wisdom to me, so
it's
therefore
I think it was because I had never actually met someone that, like, had the McRib, and so I just remember, like, you being really excited about it, and us, like, taking our food back to my apartment, which had, like, 1 futon
it was
and,
perfect.
like
Better
and,
than the terminal, that's for sure. Yeah.
like, tiny TV on my stand that I put together that I got from, like, Walmart,
Mhm.
and we either watched, like, Sweet Life on or
Oh!
Sweet Life of Zack and Cody or, like, Good Luck Charlie. It was one of those, like, Disney shows.
Mhm.
And then, you made it onto your flight the next day.
Thank you. You really saved me then. I hope you know that you really saved me then, 'cause I was
Yes.
like, "What am I doing? Oh my gosh."
To think of just how like, how many times, like, our lives.
Random life, yes, pathways crossed, and then gosh, and then it was maybe a few years later, we both decided to do Iconic Beauty.
Yeah, I can't remember, like, how I found out that you were doing it,
I don't either. Maybe we were in the same Facebook group or something. She probably
yeah.
had us all in, like, a group of some sort.
And I remember, like, we got out to LA and the person that was, like, in the Airbnb wasn't answering their phone.
Oh,
And, like, no one had a key or, like, a code, and the girl that was supposed to be in there was sleeping or something, and we were
mm,
like, "Okay, what the heck am I supposed to do?" So, yeah, we've had lots of adventures. We saw
yes.
Eugene from BuzzFeed.
Yes, yes, that was so funny. I was like, "Is that the guy from BuzzFeed?" And he was, like,
Yeah.
holding his Trader Joe's bag, turns around, he's like, "Hi," and then just walks
You were
away.
just like, "It's Eugene."
Like,
Yep,
"Wow."
quite the adventures that you and
LA,
I have had.
North Carolina, and Orlando. That is wild. But I mean,
Mhm.
Arizona looks beautiful on you right now. And it's crazy because I remember like when we were at Iconic Beauty, we're manifesting our dreams and our goals.
Mhm.
And you were telling me, like, okay, no, Florida's not really where you want to live. You're thinking of somewhere more dry. You like California, but you're really starting to fall for Arizona. And you did it. And now you have such a beautiful family there too. And I'm just like, all your dreams, they're here. Like,
Yeah, my parents were leaving Florida. They, like,
mhm,
they were retired and they decided to buy a house, like, on the ocean in Mexico, and I was like,
mhm.
"Okay, well, what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
Where am I supposed to go?" Um, and so, yeah, I was like, "Well, this is my opportunity to, like, get out of Florida." Uh,
Mhm,
I got a job offer, like, in Phoenix, and I was like, "Well,
mhm.
you know, that's I'm getting closer and closer to California," which
Yeah.
was always, like, the dream. And I
Mm.
was like, "Plus, I'll be closer to my parents,
Yes.
it'll be, like, a short flight to visit them." So, yeah, I, like, moved out to Phoenix by myself, didn't know anyone. I had been out here before because that's where I
For
trained,
training,
like, for
yeah.
a flight attendant, um, and yeah, like, I got an apartment, like, hadn't toured it, hadn't seen it, just got it online, showed up in Arizona. My mom drove out with me, my 2 dogs, and, um,
Wow.
yeah, and I've been here, like, so that I think was, like, 2017, um, Yeah, and I've like been out here ever since.
2017. Man.
Yeah, because I met my husband like 2018, like March of
Oh,
2018. So I
wow.
had moved to Arizona like September-ish of
Mhm.
2017.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and then met Nick like the following spring.
Mhm. Yeah, and
3 kids later.
3 kids!
Yes.
3 kids! How is that? How is motherhood? What on earth? You're a mom, and it's
I
like
know,
right.
right? I'm just like, "Oh my gosh." I, like, look back at old pictures from, like, the pageant days and,
Mhm.
like, the beer, like, promo girl
Yes,
days
mhm,
and just, like, being able to go to LA for a weekend and,
mhm,
it's just, like it's crazy. There are days where, like, I get really reminiscent, like, about that time and,
mhm.
like, kinda miss just sort of the, like, freedom and spontaneity of, like, being able to do stuff like
Well, I was gonna
that.
say you are very spontaneous if I see, like, all the things that you did and would go to and whatever, you're like, "Just try it, just
Mhm.
do it, just go
Yep.
for it."
I mean, I had no reason, like, not to, I
Mhm,
wasn't in a like, a long-term I was single, didn't have
mhm,
kids,
mhm.
just really had truffles to
Yes.
to think
You're
about.
international two-time
Yeah,
pageant dog winner,
3-time
yes.
international
We have
pageant.
to bring that up, it's a pageant podcast, okay? Like,
Um,
honored. Yes.
yeah, and so I was just like, I might as well, like, do what I can and what I want while
Mhm.
I can,
Yes.
and yeah, and so I did. And now, my life revolves around, my children.
I'm sure. I mean, and they're all, like, not too far in age, right?
They're all about 2 years apart. So,
Oh.
yeah, so Jackson is 5, um,
Okay. Yeah,
Maya's 3,
he's still a baby, yeah.
and Tay, will be 1, February 18th.
Oh my gosh.
So, yes.
Wow. How do you balance because you don't have, like, 3 arms, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
It's hard, and fortunately so my parents are, like, in Arizona,
Okay.
um, my in-laws are local, like,
Mm.
most Nick's, like, immediate family is here.
Okay.
So, very fortunate to have, like, so many family members
Oh,
around
that's
that,
great. Mhm.
can take the kids and can help out and
Yes.
stuff. People always ask, they're like, "What was the hardest change?" Like, going from no kids to 1, 1 to 2, or 2 to 3, and I'm like, 2 to like, going from 2 to 3, for sure.
Wow.
Because I feel like everything is made for a couple having 2 kids. And then you add in the 3rd, and it's like, "Okay, now we have to buy a bigger car because we don't have room to fit 3 car seats."
Oh.
And, yeah, it's just like you don't have a 3rd arm,
Yeah.
and, like, when it was just, like, the 2 of them, which was still craziness, but it's a little easier to be able to, like, send 1 over here to, like, deal with this one, and now
God.
it's like, "Okay, now there's 3 of them," and
Well, and also too, it's like you had these 2 kids while you were pregnant, so, like, to me, it's like you're
yeah.
pregnant too, that's a whole 'nother like, you do have the kid in your stomach, so it's just like,
Yeah.
holy cow.
Yeah, it was, so Tay, is, like, our last,
Mhm.
and that pregnancy, I just, like, I felt everyone was like, "How are you doing? Like, how are you feeling?" And was like, "I feel like I'm, like, 36 years old and pregnant." Um, like, I guess by a lot of standards, like, I was older when I got married and, like, older when I had kids, which that age, like, is actually, like, going up, like, people are
Yeah,
waiting,
I was gonna
like,
say,
till later in life.
yeah.
Um, it's not I forgot, like, the age, like, of first-time moms has, like, gone up to, like, 32 or
I
something.
fully believe it.
And, which, like, to some, like, older generations, they're like, "That's too old, like, that's so old."
That
And,
was my dad. My
um
dad's like, "Why aren't you married yet?" I'm
yeah,
like, "I'm
like, my
not
niece
ready."
I think my niece is, like, 26, and
Mhm.
she's just living her best life. But yeah, like with all the older family members are like, when are you gonna get married? Like, we want grandkids. Like,
But it's
we
like,
want
if
great
not, then you
grandkids.
probably couldn't do, like, the flight attendant, the P.
Yeah.
Diddy, the pageants, like, you couldn't have those other not to say you
Hmm.
couldn't, but it would have been a lot harder
Yeah.
for you to balance, like, these spontaneous decisions while having kids as well,
Yes.
for sure.
I mean, it like everything worked out like for me. Like
Yes.
I was not ready like to be in a serious like committed relationship, to have children,
Mhm.
like um in my like mid to late 20s, even really like my early 30s.
Mhm.
I still wasn't entirely sure like where I wanted to be, what I wanted to do.
Mhm.
And I hadn't really figured out like that next chapter
Got
um
it.
until I came out here, and then like got into a serious relationship
Mhm.
for the first time in years. It had been forever, like since I had dated anyone.
Wow.
Um, and then it was kind of like, okay, like I think I'm feeling like more stable like in my
Mhm.
life now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Jackson like came along in 2019, and
Oh.
yeah, now it's just this is my life now. It's
Wow.
like momhood.
Well, then, okay, back to pageants. How is it being a pageant mom now?
So Maya's done like 2 or 3 little pageants.
Mhm.
Um, the first one she did, it was like Little Miss Valentine or something. It
Mhm.
was just a little local one, and we just did it because we thought she would have fun.
Mhm.
Um, she won. She was like an absolute goofball. She didn't wear shoes while she was like on stage. She had a dress like my mom made her, and it was really cute. But her shoes that I got like from Shein or something didn't really fit, and so they kept falling off her feet. And she was like, "Well, I'm just not." She's like, "I'm not gonna wear these."
That's so
Um, and I can't remember how old, like, I don't know if she was like, I think she was just over like 1. I remember telling the director, "Is that gonna look bad? Her shoes keep falling off and she won't." And she was like, "It's fine."
yeah.
So yeah, so she went on stage, and like Maya's hair, she does not have Jackson's like thick, like
Mhm.
gorgeous hair. Her hair is like very like thin and
Mhm.
kind of like frizzy. And at the
Mhm.
time for her age, it was still like kind of like short and
Okay.
just like a mop top. And so she walks out there and she's like so happy to be there, but she's barefoot, and like her ribbon like doesn't stay in her hair because her hair is so thin. And I was like, she's
That's my
having fun
girl.
at least.
Yep. Mhm.
She won. Um I was like, well, I'm not gonna put her into anything like toddlers and tiara type pageant.
Mhm.
She did the Cinderella um system,
Okay.
and it was kind of like the same thing. I could not do anything with her hair. Um, it just was sort of a mess. I think she ended up like losing a shoe. She got
Cinderella sounds
Yeah,
yeah.
true. She got chocolate, like, on her dress. Before, like, going on stage, she found, like, this, roll of duct tape and insisted on, like, taking it on stage with her. And that's just, like, that's Maya. That's who she is.
That's so I love how you post pictures of, like, her Walmart wardrobe,
Yes.
and it's, like, a princess dress with, like, Crocs or, like, something really, random.
Yes, she's a little fashionista, and
Mhm.
we were at Walmart. We were at Walmart not too long ago, and she had on like she had on a some sort of princess dress.
Mm-hmm.
Um and I think like her like little jelly sparkle shoes. She had her purse and like her plastic phone and then like her little stuffed dog. And then she saw this hat at Walmart, which was like a unicorn glitter hat and it had like a pom-pom on the top. And so she decided to wear that and she threw that on. And then she was just like walking through the store talking on like her fake phone and like shuffling her little feet and had like her purse and just like so many of her outfits were
So
just,
entertaining. Like,
I'm like, you know what, you go girl, like
yes, what
it's
a
not
star.
like the battle, it's not worth it to like fight her on what she
No,
wants to wear. And I'm like, at this age she can get away with it. But yes, her
true.
unfortunately it's just we're like the Dollar Tree and Walmart that we're going to these outfits because she does like look really unhinged in some
I
of
love
them.
it. I love it so much. I hope she never changes. That's beautiful.
So yes, so that is my like my crazy little Maya.
Yes. Oh,
I don't know if she'll ever like want to do pageants or anything like that, but we'll see. I've had like local directors asking like if I want to have her compete. Like,
mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like,
I
she's
get it.
very she's in her very like defiant and sassy
Mm-hmm.
phase. So I'm like, I don't really know if that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Like all three of them have modeled
Mm-hmm.
for bumpkins. So that's kind of like our focus.
Yes, they're already stars. So, and
Yes.
at least all of them can do it, and the boys can
Mhm.
participate and have a fun time. So, that's good. Because I was like, I don't know if there's a lot of pageants in Arizona. I feel like they'd be so limited. Okay, but I guess we've wrapped up. I think we did a solid pageant to P
Uh-huh.
Diddy to parenting. So, is there anything else that I didn't mention or that you would want to add?
No, you did great, and it was fun getting to like talk to you and catch up
Yes,
and
yes.
reminisce about
Go
the
through
good
memory
old
lane of
days.
your many adventures and things.
Oh yeah, all of the just random parts of my life.
It's okay. In pageantry, we all have random parts of our
Yes.
lives. So, what was the last? Because normally I'll end it be like signing off. She is former Miss blah 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 blah. So, would you
Mhm.
want to be Miss?
Um, well, the last title I had was like Florida's Perfect Miss.
Ooh. Okay. So
Yeah,
signing.
that
Yes.
was the last one that I had.
Okay. But I feel like you're so much more than that. I gotta be honest. I feel like you've done so much.
Signing off as, oh God, I don't even know the like the
Parenting, signing off as the parenting, pageantry, talent agent, flight attendant. I want to work for Diddy 2 reality star. She is Noelle Pawlowski.